Your small account is not the problem. Your belief that is the thing quietly destroying you. Every single day you sit down at your screen and trade like the size of your account is a sentence, like it is a ceiling someone else put over you. You are making a decision that has nothing to do with price action and everything to do with psychology. And here's what nobody tells the beginner who is 3 months in, who has already blown one account and is now protecting a second one like it is the last water in a desert. A small account, managed with surgical precision, will outperform a large account managed with the psychology of scarcity every single time. Not sometimes, every time. The mechanism that beats size is not strategy. It is not a better indicator or a tighter stop. It is the way your mind relates to risk when the number in your account cannot afford to make you feel safe. That relationship, that forced intimacy with uncertainty, is the hidden advantage you have been calling a handicap. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I know how it sounds. It sounds like something someone says to make you feel better. It sounds like a consolation prize wrapped in philosophy. And I understand that reaction completely, because I had it too. For years I believed the lie that capital was the variable. That if I just had more money in the account, the emotional noise would quiet down, the decisions would get cleaner, the losses would stop feeling like indictments of my intelligence. I believe that the way most traders believe it, not consciously, not as a stated philosophy, but as a background assumption that shaped every single trade I placed. And that assumption cost me more than any single bad trade ever did. Here's what I eventually learned, and what I want to give you today before you spend another year waiting for a bigger account to solve a problem that bigger accounts do not solve. The market does not care what is in your account. It never did. The market is a probability distribution, and your job, whether you have $500 or $500,000, is to execute within that distribution without letting your emotional state contaminate your decision-making. A large account does not give you that. It gives you the illusion of it, and illusions in this business are the most expensive things you will ever buy. The small account trader, the one who is managing size carefully because he has to, who cannot afford to be sloppy, because sloppiness ends the game, that trader is being trained by the market in a way the large account trader never will be. Every forced precision is a lesson being written directly into the nervous system. Every moment you choose not to trade because the setup is not clean enough, not because you are afraid, but because you have genuinely internalized that bad setups are just opportunities to lose money. You cannot afford to lose. That moment is building something in you that no amount of capital can purchase. It is building a professional mind. And a professional mind is the only thing this market has ever paid for consistently, not a larger account, not a more sophisticated strategy. A mind that can execute without being hijacked by what the outcome means to it personally. Let me tell you about a trader I knew early in my career, before I understood any of this myself. He had access to more capital than most people in this business ever see. He had been given backing by a firm that believed in his raw talent, which was real. The man could read price action in a way that made you lean forward in your chair. He had everything the small account trader thinks he needs: the size, the infrastructure, the credibility that comes from managing someone else's serious money. And he blew the account. Not all at once, not in one catastrophic session, but slowly, the way a tire loses air. You do not notice it until one morning you come outside and the car is sitting flat on the pavement. I asked him, after it was over, what he thought had happened, and he said something I have never forgotten. He said, "I never had to take my process seriously because I always had enough left over to try again." That sentence contains everything you need to understand about why a large account, in the hands of a trader who has not yet built the psychological infrastructure to manage it, is not an advantage. It is a delay. It is the market's way of letting you be wrong longer, which sounds like mercy, but is actually the cruelest possible thing it can do to you. Because the longer you are allowed to be wrong without facing a real consequence, the more deeply your bad habits embed themselves into your default behavior. The feedback loop that should be teaching you is being insulated by the capital buffer, and when the buffer is finally gone, and it is always finally gone, you do not have the skills the smaller, more constrained trader built in the meantime. You have the habits, the buffer protected. I spent a long time thinking about that trader after our conversation, and what I realized was that the small account trader, the one I had always looked at with something close to pity, the one grinding away at a $5,000 account, trying to build it into something real, had something my well-funded friend did not have. He had real consequences, immediate enough to be felt, attached to every decision he made, and real consequences are the only true teacher this market offers. You can read every book ever written about trading psychology, including mine, And the knowledge will remain theoretical until the market gives you a consequence you cannot afford to ignore. The small account delivers that consequence early, consistently, and with a precision that no educational program in the world can replicate. It is not a punishment. It is tuition for the only education that actually produces a professional trader. But here is where I need to stop and say something that most people teaching trading psychology will not say, because it is uncomfortable and because it does not feel as generous as what I have been telling you. This is the part I need you to really hear, because it determines whether everything I have said so far actually changes anything for you, or whether it just makes you feel better about your situation for an afternoon before the old thinking comes back. The advantage of a small account only exists if you are using it correctly. And most traders with small accounts are not. They are doing the opposite. They are trying to trade like they have a large account. They are taking position sizes that represent 5, 10, 15% of their equity on any given trade because they are impatient. Because they need the account to grow fast enough to feel real, to feel like it is worth the time they are spending, to feel like evidence that they have not made a mistake by choosing this path. And in doing that, in letting the urgency of the small number drive the size of the risk they have taken, the one structural advantage they had, and thrown it in the garbage. This is not a minor tactical error. This is a fundamental psychological misalignment, and it comes from the same source as every other expensive mistake in trading. The belief that the outcome of any single trade or any single week matters more than the process applied consistently across a large sample. The trader who sizes up because he needs this trade to matter has already decided, at some level, that the process is negotiable. And a negotiable process is not a process, it is a suggestion. Markets do not reward suggestions. They reward edges, executed consistently across large samples. Those are the only results that mean anything over time. So let me give you something concrete right now, something you can start using in your very next session before the charts are even open. I want you to do one thing before you place any position for the next 30 days. I want you to write down, physically write it, not type it, write it by hand, 3 words at the top of your trading journal before each session. The 3 words are precision over urgency, not as a mantra you repeat to calm yourself down, not as an affirmation you say to feel like a disciplined trader. As a diagnostic question, before you execute any trade, before you touch the order size, look at those 3 words and ask yourself honestly, is this position size driven by what the setup actually warrants? Or is it driven by how badly I need this trade to matter? That question, asked honestly each time, will save you from the single most expensive mistake small account traders make. Because the trade that feels urgent is almost never the trade that is actually good. Urgency is the emotion that fills the space where edge should be. They cannot occupy the same space at the same time. When you feel urgency, edge has already left the room, and you are now just gambling with a story attached. Now, I want to go deeper into something that I think is the real structural reason why small accounts can beat large ones, and it has to do with the nature of consistency itself, which is something most traders think about backwards. Most traders think about consistency as a result. They think it is something that happens after enough practice, after enough time in the market, after enough screen hours accumulate into some critical mass of experience that eventually produces reliable behavior, and that is partially true. But consistency is also a cause. The act of being consistent, of doing the same thing the same way across a large sample of trades, regardless of outcome, is what generates the data you need to actually know whether your edge is real. And knowing whether your edge is real is the most important thing you can know as a trader, more important than any setup, more important than any entry technique. If you do not know whether your edge is real, you do not know anything that matters. A large account trader who is being careless will not generate clean data. He will mix disciplined trades with emotional trades, sized up trades with standard trades, days when he followed his plan with days when he improvised, and the results will look like noise. A small account trader who is being precise, who has no real choice but to be precise because one undisciplined decision has outsized consequences, will generate cleaner data from fewer trades. And clean data is how you know. It is how you cross the line from hoping your strategy works to actually knowing it works across a statistically meaningful sample. That knowledge, real knowledge, not belief, not the story you tell yourself when you are trying to stay calm after a string of losses, is what eliminates the emotional second-guessing that destroys more trades than bad setups ever will. When you know your edge is real because you have generated clean data that demonstrates it objectively, you trade differently. the loss does not shake you the same way. Not because you have become numb to it, not because you have talked yourself into caring less about money, but because you understand what a loss actually represents inside a probabilistic system. It represents one data point in a distribution, and a single data point tells you nothing about whether the system works. You need the whole distribution to see the system's truth. The small account trader who is trading precisely is generating the cleanest version of that distribution he possibly can. And that is a gift with a time delay. It does not feel like a gift today. It feels like grinding. It feels like discipline. It feels like leaving money on the table. But in 6 months, looking back at a clean sample of data that tells you definitively whether your edge is real, you will understand exactly what I mean. Here's the second practice I want to give you, and this one requires a specific kind of discipline that goes against the emotional habits most traders have built up. After every 10 trades, not every trade, not every day, every 10 trades, I want you to review those trades, not for profit and loss, but for process adherence. One question only: did I do what my plan said I would do? Not, did I make money? Did I follow my plan? Score yourself 1 point for each trade where you followed your plan, 0 for each where you deviated. Give yourself a score out of 10. And here is what is going to feel strange at first. I want you to feel good about an 8 out of 10, even if your profit and loss for those 10 trades is negative. And I want you to feel concerned about a 10 out of 10 if 2 of those winning trades came from setups you sized up on because they felt like certainties. Because a losing trade executed according to your plan is more valuable than a winning trade that came from breaking your rules. The perfectly executed losing trade is data about whether your edge is real. The rule-breaking winner is data about nothing except the randomness of markets. Do not let randomness teach you. It is the worst teacher you will ever have, because it confirms whatever you want it to confirm. This connects directly to something that I have seen cost traders at every account size, but that hits small account traders especially hard because the emotional pressure is higher. They evaluate themselves on outcomes. They feel capable when they win and incompetent when they lose, independently of how they actually traded. And that emotional feedback loop is completely disconnected from what will actually produce profitable results over time. A trader who evaluates himself on outcomes is getting his feedback from the wrong signal. He is checking the wrong gauge and wondering why the engine keeps failing. The market will pay you for edge executed consistently across a large sample. It will not pay you for being right on any given trade. Those are two completely different things. And the confusion between them is the source of more trading failure than I can calculate. So, what does it actually look like in concrete and practical terms to trade a small account in the way that creates this advantage? Let me walk you through the specific mental posture I am describing, because I think it is more tangible than people expect. You wake up. You have a trading plan. The plan says you will only take trades that meet all 4 of these specific criteria. Today, in the first hour of the session, you see 2 setups. One of them meets your criteria cleanly. All 4 elements are present unambiguously, without any internal negotiation required. The second setup almost meets your criteria. It has 3 of the 4, and the 4th is borderline, the kind of thing where you could argue yourself into it if you wanted to badly enough. The large account trader, the one whose capital buffer has made borderline feel survivable, might take both setups. The small account trader who is trading with precision, not with fear. Precision, there is a crucial difference, and I need you to hold that difference, takes only the first one. The setup that requires no argument, the one that qualifies by the plan, not by negotiation. And here's the part most people skip when they tell themselves this story. If the first trade loses and the second would have won, the precise small account trader does not feel like an idiot. He does not spiral into a review of whether his criteria need to change, whether he was too rigid, whether the borderline red was actually more perceptive than his plan gives credit for. He feels like a professional who made a good decision with the information available, executed his plan, and received one losing data point in his ongoing sample. The same way a surgeon who performs a flawless procedure and loses a patient anyway is not a bad surgeon. The outcome does not determine the quality of the process. The process determines the quality of outcomes over time. And over time is the only time frame that ever tells the truth about trading. I want to give you one more practice before I close. And this one is going to feel unusual at first. And then, if you commit to it for even 3 weeks, it is going to become something you genuinely do not want to trade without. Once a week, whichever day suits your schedule, I want you to spend 10 minutes doing what I call the neutral review. Sit down with your trading journal and read your last week of entries as though you are reading about someone else, not you. A different trader whose Journal, you've been asked to evaluate and look for patterns of behavior. Not good trades or bad trades, behavioral patterns. Is this trader taking larger position sizes on Mondays than on Fridays? Is this trader entering before the setup is fully formed on certain types of setups? Is this trader holding losses longer than his plan specifies or cutting winners shorter than he should? Is there a correlation between certain market conditions and a specific kind of behavioral deviation? You are looking at the behavior from the outside with the emotional distance that comes from reading about someone else. This technique, this deliberate, structured dissociation from your own trades, is one of the most powerful diagnostic tools I know of for catching the behavioral drifts that, undetected and unexamined, compound over weeks and months into serious account damage. Because here is what happens to almost every trader without this kind of review. They drift. They begin by following their plan with reasonable consistency, and then slowly, across days and weeks, small exceptions begin to accumulate. This setup felt so clear I sized up slightly. This loss was obviously just bad luck, so I took a slightly larger position next time. This morning I woke up feeling sharp, so I took 2 extra trades I would not normally have taken. Each exception feels completely justified in the moment. Each one seems like a reasonable response to specific circumstances. Together, across weeks, they are the slow erosion of the edge you thought you had. The neutral review catches the drift before drift becomes direction. And I want to bring this home in a way that I hope stays with you past this video, past today, past the first week of trying these practices. The reason a small account can beat a large one is not poetic, and it is not a motivational reframe of a difficult situation. It is structural. Constraints produce discipline when they are severe enough to be real and when the person operating within them has chosen to learn from them rather than spend energy resenting them. The small account is the constraint. The discipline it forces, the selectivity, the precision, the consistent process adherence is the advantage. But the constraint only produces the discipline if you receive it that way. If you spend your energy wishing for more capital, using the account size as the explanation for your results, treating every loss as evidence that you just need more money to trade properly, the constraint produces nothing but frustration and stagnation. You are standing in the environment most precisely designed to build professional trading psychology, looking at the door, waiting to be transferred to an environment that you believe will be more conducive to your development. There is no more conducive environment. Not for this work. The large account can come later. The mind that manages it properly has to come first. And this, what you have right now, this account, these constraints, these real and immediate consequences, this is where that mind gets built. You already have what you need, not in your account. In the relationship between you and your process, which is the only relationship in trading that actually determines long-term outcomes. Not the relationship between you and the market. Not the relationship between you and your strategy. The relationship between you and your own decision-making, and whether you are willing to hold that decision-making to a standard that the account size cannot negotiate away. Start with the 3 words tomorrow. Precision over urgency, before the first chart opens. Review your process after the next 10 trades. Do the neutral review at the end of this week. These are small actions. They are not the kind of thing that makes a dramatic story. But professional trading is not a dramatic story. It is a series of unremarkable, consistent, well-executed decisions across a very large sample of trades, and the cumulative result of that consistency is the most dramatic financial outcome available to anyone willing to do the work properly. If what I shared today changed something in the way you think about your account and your process, if even one part of it landed in a way that feels true and usable, stay close. Everything on this channel is built around the same commitment, not to make trading feel easier than it is, but to give you the real tools that actually move results across time. Not this week. Across time. Subscribe not because it helps the channel grow, but because if this is the work you have decided to do on yourself, you deserve a place where that work is given the depth and the honesty it requires. The next time you sit down at your screen, you have something with you that you did not have before. That is enough to start. Use it well. The market will notice, even if it takes a while before the numbers in the account reflect what the mind already knows. Be patient with the lag. The work is real. The outcome will follow the work. It always does. For the trader willing to wait long enough and stay consistent long enough to let it. And one more thing, because I think it matters, and because I did not say it clearly enough earlier. The traders I have watched build real, lasting profitability, not the ones who had a great year and disappeared, but the ones who are still trading well a decade later. Almost none of them started with large accounts. Almost all of them went through exactly what you are going through now: the small account, the constraint, the forced precision. And almost all of them told me, at some point after they had reached consistency, that the small account period was the most important part of their development. Not in spite of the difficulty, because of it, because of exactly what I have been describing for the last 20 minutes. The constraint was the curriculum, the difficulty was the degree. And the mind it built, patient, precise, process-oriented, was the only thing that made everything that came after it possible.